Hello and welcome to another episode of Metal Effort. My name's Nehemiah, and today we're going to be looking at this piece of metal, the Civivi Statera. Let's get into our size comparison. I've got our PM2 and our Para 3. This is a medium-sized knife, 3.5-inch blade, 3-inch cutting edge, and it's very reminiscent, very similar in at least size as the Civivi Backlash, which, was the smallest knife that Civivi had in its line, but was still kind of a medium-sized knife. So there's going to be a second option in the size category, which is good, and we'll see how things kind of shake out on the new Statera. The Statera is a little bit more expensive. It starts at $68 instead of $42. So we'll see here if it earns its pay wage. Let's get into our dent, the decent, the excellent, the nitpicks, and the terrible of this piece of metal. First off, in the decent is the weight. Weight on this is pretty good considering. You have stainless steel liners, you have a layer of G10, and then you have a layer of CF on the top. So it all adds up to be 3.7 really ounces, which is, over an ounce an inch, but only just. And, considering that we're not using titanium, I think that is a pretty good, number. The blade is really nice. This is D2 steel, which is significantly better than what was on the Backlash. D2 is probably the best ingot steel. Once you get into the powdered metallurgy, most of those steels, outperform D2, but this is still good. It's easy to sharpen, holds an edge pretty decently well. I should mention this does not come with a mirror edge on it. Normally that's an edge I put on, and boy, did that edge come up really, really quickly and easily. I've already kind of scuffed up the edge a little bit, just, using it, but really, really good steel. And I think now that we've kind of gotten to the point where D2 is the go-to budget steel, I think, this is a great time to be in the knife hobby regardless of your budget. Another thing about the blade I do like is how thin it is. I think when you look at the blade this way, that giant fuller, kind of a short grind, you might be worried that it might not be a good cutter, but the blade stock is actually pretty reasonable, 0.12, and that combined with just a sharp edge, it's actually very slicey. That's kind of similar to the Backlash in the sense that it's surprisingly thin. When you compare it to something like a PM2, you can kind of see the difference we're talking about. So sure, the PM2 has a full flat grind, but it needs it because it's starting out a lot thicker. So in terms of actual cutting ability, I feel like these two are pretty similar in terms of like slicing. The Fuller has other negatives, but at least, a knife should cut, and this knife does in fact cut. I also like how clean the blade is. You have nothing printed on here, with the exception of just a little tiny D2, which is exactly where M390 was printed on the WE Knives Bishop. Civivi, obviously, is a subsidiary of WE Knives, just kind of their budget line, same company. So you see a lot of the same design kind of motifs here, and that is they've picked up on the fact that we like clean blades. This blade has the ad blocker turned on, and so I approve. Yay. Another nice thing about this knife is the jimping. Jimping on the top of the blade is good, but it's also equally good on the flipper tab. Flipper tab is excellent, and jimping comes down around the edge, so even if you kind of grab it, at the top instead of your full finger, still enough to flip it, no problem. And push button works just as well. Really good shape for the flipper tab with that jimping. They pulled this off really good. I mean, WE knows their stuff. They're really good. To kind of go along with the blade, we also have a clip that is stonewashed as well on the reverse. Got the 3-line motif that we and Civivi's been using lately. The clip goes all the way to the top of the handle, which is nice. Lanyard loop thing here is out of the way. It's part of the backspacer. Not a problem whatsoever. And this is good. It goes in and out of your pocket really nicely. There's plenty of spring to it. Ramp's good, no hot spots. It's a good clip. I like the clip. Disassembly on this knife is pretty straightforward. Nothing crazy. I appreciate it when they don't do anything weird or dumb. You have all the normal, hex bit screws getting in the knife, cleaning it out shouldn't be a problem. There are steel bearings in there, so it might be something that you'll have to get into from time to time, especially if you're, carrying it a lot and you get a lot of lint in there. It eventually will need a cleaning, and so that'll help with that. Next decent thing is the ergonomics. Ergonomics on this knife are surprisingly good. You have, the little finger kind of contouring here for the cutout, for the lock bar access, as well as just your index finger to kind of go. It's a medium size, so I foresee, small hands, medium hands, and large hands fitting on this knife, no problem. And your thumb sits right where it wants to. You have the finger guard. You can choke up if you got little tiny fingers, and I do like to choke up sometimes, but this is not quite a finger choil. It's a little too small for that, although if you really had to, you could put it there if you're not doing any kind of like stabbing motions. I think you'd be okay. But, not counting that, I think just normal grip, the ergonomics are good, no hot spots. So nothing to complain about there. And then for a $68 knife, the fit and finish on this sucker is really good. Perfect centering. Everything is lined properly. Taking it apart and putting it back together often reveals any kind of like misalignment or, fit and finish snafu. But it was not a problem on this knife. And, just for this price, there's a lot of knives that cost 3, 4, 5, 6 times as much as this and have a lot of, fit and finish issues. So if Civivi can do it at this price, I'm kind of looking at the rest of the knife industry and being like, come on. I have 2 excellent things to talk about. First thing is the action on this knife is amazeballs. So you have normal, light switch, opens strong, authoritatively, and you cannot really misfire it. I mean, even if I go really slow, it's the detent is dialed in. It is absolute perfection. So much so I could just do push button, boom, opens up no problem. It's not too hard of a detent where I'm having to yank back on it or anything like that. It's perfect. This is exactly how action should be. And notice disengaging it is easy. And then the fall shut is one jostle. That is perfect. I mean, that's great. I mean, wow. This blew me away. I did not expect, because if I'm doing the same thing with like the backlash, I would say the open is just as strong. Disengage is pretty much the same, but the shutting is not near as smooth. It's a few jostles to get it closed. But on the Statera, it's literally just one jostle gets it done pretty much every time. So, if I do it really slow and easy, it's still just buttery smooth. So if you like, good action that you normally would have to pay a premium for, this is really compelling at $68, just as a fidget toy. Next excellent thing I like is just that value. I've been talking about the $68 on and off. You're getting, carbon fiber on top of G10. What I think is a classy look. I mean, there's definitely things I might change. But, it's not crazy. It's not nuts. And, D2 steel is just so good at this price. It's really solid. It's not that you won't have to sharpen the knife, but when you do, it's going to be really good and still hold the edge for a reasonable amount of time. It's a little bit susceptible to rust compared to other stainless steels, but it's not that bad. It's not that bad. If you stay on top of it, I think you'll be fine, just with some oil or something like that. Not a big deal. I do have a couple of nitpicks. So first nitpick is there are crud grooves all over this knife. So obviously you have the fuller, and this is if your fuller gets so big and prominent, eventually it becomes not so much of a problem because I can just use my finger to clean it out. The really thin, deep, crud grooves are really annoying because then you have to go get a Q-tip or something to kind of clean it out. But here it's not that big of a deal. Still, I think I would prefer that not being there and just being a taller grind. I think that would be a strict improvement over what it is. But it's not that big of a deal, but enough to nitpick about it. I think more egregious thing here is this just arbitrary line down the middle. And you can see there's some crud right there already collecting, just from human remains, I guess. And so that's going to happen. I haven't had this knife for very long, and it's just crud is getting up in there. And then you look here in the middle, and you got 3 speed holes, I guess. I don't know, crud holes. So those are going to get garbage in them too. So I don't know how, like, necessary this is. I don't know if this line really is adding much as far as, like, aesthetics go. It definitely doesn't feel like it's doing anything in the ergonomics department. I would just prefer this to be flat CF, I think, even without the holes. Even if it adds a tiny bit of weight, I think that would be worth it. This is just kind of weird and arbitrary and has a very real downside. Kind of mentioned this sharpening choil in the ergonomics thing, but it's kind of just, it's in no man's land. Like, make it a little bit bigger like you did on the Backlash to where, I could comfortably get my finger in there, no problem. It's just a little bit smaller than that to where I don't feel 100% comfortable even using that as a finger choil. So either give me more cutting length and just, move the sharpening choil back and make it smaller, or open it up a little bit so I can get a full, choke up grip on there. So, piss or get off the pot, do one or the other. It's not a huge deal, but still, it's, for a knife, I'm carrying a 3.5 inch blade knife. I only get to use 3, and I still don't have a finger choil. So it's kind of weird. Last thing, let's move into the terrible. I don't have anything terrible on this knife. There's a lot of things that we're gonna forgive at $68, and there's not even a lot of things that are even nitpicks that would otherwise be, a terrible on another knife. Obviously, D2 on a $300 knife would be terrible, but on a $68 knife, it's great. It's awesome. And so, I don't know, like, if you are okay with the look of the knife, because this line, the 3 holes, gold, maybe it's a little gaudy. They have a couple other different color options. I feel like this is the least crazy, just all black with the gold accents. If, aesthetics, you'll know instantly if you want to be seen using this knife or not. But outside of that, as far as practicality goes, if you need a good knife, if you're, in the budget market, and, if you're considering $50 knives, say, is this worth another $18 to get D2 steel, fantastic action in, a classy design? Yeah, I would say that's worth $18. I mean, it's like, a couple of Chipotle burritos. That's not that big of a deal. So, in my conclusion, you should get this knife. Yeah, I think even just to have it kind of laying around, even if you are, a knife person and you have a ton of knives, expensive and inexpensive, I think this is good to have. If you have a friend whose, knife finally bites the dust or something, this is cheap enough to where you could just, like, give it to somebody. Stocking stuffer, birthday present, that kind of thing, where, you spend $200 on a knife and give it to somebody that doesn't normally have knives that much. They might be worried to use it. They might not, actually want to risk damaging the knife, or just not use it because they're not, used to having a knife that they would, utilize. So this is like the perfect, like, giftable but really high quality thing that could be like a gateway drug of getting somebody into the hobby. And so, I'm not just about, talking to people that are already in the hobby. I want to grow the hobby. I want the community to get bigger, and I want more people to feel included. And I think this is a tool that a lot of people would benefit, having it in their pocket. And so it's kind of on you. If you're this deep into YouTube and you're watching this video right now, try to find somebody who might be interested in this knife, who normally wouldn't be, and see if they, might be, willing to pick something like this up, because I think this could be really compelling to them. Maybe they stop, they buy the one knife, use it, like it. Maybe they get bitten by the bug. Either way, I think this is a good knife to start. That's it, everybody. I hope you enjoyed this video and it was helpful to you. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.